members of Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
Happy Sunday, and happy look, Game of Thrones is back. Yes. And I've been like humming the do 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 do.
Yes, I would like to thank them for making that integrated into the music of this one.
Yes. Welcome to our weekly reaction review straight after the episode of House of the Dragon. Some housekeeping that we're going to do in this one episode just to kind of get us going. We will most likely do one of these every night. The House of the Dragon is out.
Right.
Our plan is to do them right after the episode. We don't watch along and then come back and re-edit. So if that's what you're here for, I understand. We're much more here for the kind of the conversation about what they're talking about in the episode. And so it's our initial reaction right after the episodes. Some other housekeeping that we want to talk about too. We liked the final 2 seasons of Game of Thrones a lot more than everyone else on the internet.
Or at least that section of people on the internet.
That section of people. I understand a lot of complaints that a lot of people had of the final 2 seasons, but we tend to come to it in a what we liked a lot more than what we disliked kind of conversation. So if you're going to sit here and bash the storytelling or the decisions that were made and not talk about the things that you did like, this is not that kind of show.
Right.
Is that a good way of putting it?
Yes. We will talk about things that we potentially didn't like, but
yes,
it's not all negative.
We will definitely point out stuff that it just didn't hit with us as well as it did with other things, but we're not here to bash things. We're here to talk about the things that we like.
Right.
Hashtag love your fandom. With all of that kind of being led out, you understand what this show is going to be for us. We've talked about how much we've missed the theme, and how much we've loved or really liked the final 2 seasons. So to start with that point, this was awesome.
Yes. It was nice to be back in Westeros. Thanks, Ken Knapsack. Yeah, it was nice to be back. It was good. It was a good first episode to kind of get you back into the flow, introduce some characters, back at King's Landing. I kind of talked about it, I think, when we were watching the trailer. So I did not realize that King's Landing was where, I guess it's in the name, I just didn't put it together, that King's Landing is where the house that's ruling Westeros lives. I thought that the Lannisters were just that full of themselves that they named.
No, that's totally legit.
But yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, it makes sense that King's Landing is where
it's DC.
Yes, it's the seat of the crown.
Yeah.
It's like London. The Queen doesn't technically live there, but it's the seat.
Yeah.
So I learned something new, or put it all together finally today.
And they did a really good job of reminding you that this is where we're at, with the last image that we all had of King's Landing was Dany riding a dragon through and burning everything to the ground.
Right.
And this episode did not necessarily start there. It started with the Grey Council and kind of talking about everything that kind of led to Viserys becoming king.
Right.
But the first big visual of the show was a dragon riding through King's Landing with
not on fire,
with Rhaenyra riding her, and so it's a light-skinned, light-haired, young woman riding a dragon through King's Landing. We were just there, except this time it wasn't on fire.
Right. Well, and they made a point of showing Rhaenyra with her back to the camera, like petting the dragon, and it looks like Dany. Yeah. I was like, are we doing a flashback?
Yeah.
It looked like Dany.
And they also said, so after the Grey Council prologue kind of thing, they said it was 172 years before the Mad King died and Danny becomes the heir. So it gives you a point of reference to what we already know for those who did not read of Blood and Fire and the Game of Thrones series and everything. Like the
Ice and Fire.
Ice and Fire. I said Ice and Fire. I knew I wasn't right. Who did not read Ice and Fire, but loved the show. So they're like seeing the visual of a white-haired woman riding a dragon. Here's the reference point. Oh, by the way, she's not a terrible person. At least not yet. We'll get there.
Danny wasn't terrible in the beginning
And
either.
she was not. And all of you that got tattoos of Danny and named your kids Daenerys, what happened? Oh yeah, she was the villain the whole time. It wasn't. Sorry. I'm trying not. I'm gonna try not to do that.
It was Agatha all
along. Right. So the way we do our reviews and reactions is kind of a free form. We kind of talk about the episode and kind of some of the themes that they were laying out in front of us. With that understanding, like it's hard not to do a kind of a segmented thing with this. We have to talk about the Grey Council and them laying out that the lords of the land picked Viserys to be the king of the Seven Kingdoms, and that he had a mostly prosperous time as king.
Yeah, it seems like, again, this is, the first episode. We're kind of stepping back in, but it seems like his people like him, if not love him. Things are chugging along. There are still issues, as we see with uh,
With
Damon
Damon
and
the
the Gold Cloaks kind of coming in and cleaning up shop. But I think that's kind of normal for a big city. You're gonna have, the
people pulling things.
yeah,
Yeah.
thefts and drug use and homes of prostitution.
My example I use is right before the Atlanta games. They came
Yeah.
into downtown Atlanta, the Atlanta Olympic Games. They came in and like the police removed all the homeless from the inner city where all the games were going to be, and people were like, "You can't do this." They didn't do it nearly as violently in this, but that kind of concept before the tournament.
I mean, it's not all roses, but it's chugging along. People seem to like him. His home seems to be a good one. He loves his wife. He his daughter is whatever, over there. She's a girl. And yeah, so it seems like he's having a decent reign. It's
and his uh uh his council, his
his
small
council.
Small council, that's the word.
Yeah.
I'm like, high council, that wasn't right. His small council seems to be all there for him and all wanting to go in the same direction as he does.
Again, it's the first episode.
It's the first episode.
But it seems that way.
But we, more often than not, in the 8 seasons of the Game of Thrones, the small council was trying to do a different direction than what actually the king wanted to do. What Littlefinger was trying to do, but
we didn't know that in one episode, and I'm sure that we're going to find out a lot of backstory about these characters, that they're probably not all on his side, but right now in this slice of time, they're celebrating the name day for the child that hasn't actually been born yet, and with the tournament, yay, everybody's happy. They're celebrating. The queen is has gone to term, as we learn through the episode, that didn't Renaria. This is going to take a minute for us to get through get used to all these names again.
Yeah.
Was the only live birth that she had. She'd been pregnant many times. Five times. So this would have been 7 with her, and then this one 7 times. And so she's almost ready to deliver. So yay! What could possibly go wrong?
And the child is Breach, and,
Except for that.
and we'll do the spinny spinny. Um, I like a lot of how they. I really expected them to do what they did in this episode and spread it out over 2 or 3 episodes with the naming of Rhaenyra as the heir and
Yeah.
not Daemon.
Yeah.
I really expected that to take 3 episodes and not one.
Yeah.
I am glad that they did that
Right.
because I'm here for the conflict between Daemon and Rhaenyra and
Right.
what the Targaryens are going to do to try to eat each other,
Right.
which is a very Targaryen thing to do.
But
Uh,
they did lay it out that the two of them actually love each other, like each other, whatever.
Care for
So,
each other, however
yeah,
you want to put it. Yeah,
yeah.
they are definitely
We're
there
the
for each
bastard
other.
children, so we're gonna stick together. Oh wait, now I'm named as heir and you weren't. And
Right,
so,
and they also did a really good job with Daemon about showing that, uh, yeah, he maybe is power hungry, but he's not heartless. Like he's not like everything he does with Rhaenyra is definitely a from a caring point of view of his niece. It's not backstabbing. Again, 1 episode. I'm sure down the
right,
line it's going to be
right.
shown that it's been backstabbing the whole time. But he actually like really cares for her, and I like that. That's one of the things about Game of Thrones that I really enjoyed with the previous series was as much as we didn't like Littlefinger, he actually did care for people. And as much as we didn't like Tyrion at times, he cared for people. And as much
Yeah,
as we didn't like Cersei, she cared for people. She cared for her kids. And so like there's an emotional tie to those characters that we ended up hating, but also loved hating.
right. Well, it makes them more of a fleshed out character,
Yeah.
right? They're not
Yeah.
just the mustache twirling. Everything they do is evil.
Littlefinger was the mustache twirling.
Yeah, but not everything. Like it's easy to hate somebody that's just a hateful person. Like there's no redeeming factors
Yeah.
about them whatsoever. But that also makes them very one dimensional
Yeah.
and not believable because people aren't like that. Evil people still love generally
Something.
their
Yeah.
generally at least their close family or whatever, but they love or care about something, someone. I think that the reason the two of them, or the reason why he cared about her, is because like I said, he felt like they were kindred spirits. They were the ignored, they were the overlooked, and 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 now that's not necessarily going to be the case.
I like this episode a lot for first episode because Game of Thrones is all about the moving of the chess pieces on the board.
Right.
And this is very much of it's the first volley of a chess match. We have now placed things on the board. We're not necessarily in the middle of the match, but we've at least started the process and we've put everything kind of in place. We've introduced the characters, we've kind of introduced the general idea of who the heir is and what that means going forward.
Yeah, introduce the conflict.
And they introduce the conflict and like everything is there. And I think the next couple of episodes are going to be very much of moving the pieces before the big conflict is coming towards the end of the season.
I think we'll get a little more backstory on everyone, right?
Yes.
So they
Yes.
vaguely introduced Damon's wife right at the. I assume that was his wife right at
I
the
think
end
that was the mistress from the brothel. I think that's who that was.
with the
But
dragon.
with the dragon.
Oh, because I thought they had sent him home, and so he took off
to
on
his wife.
right, with his dragon. Okay,
Right.
um,
Again, we've only watched it one time,
right,
so
and the small council, the members of the small council, his high tower, his hand. There is definitely some stuff going on there. I mean, we vaguely got his wife just died. His daughter is Rhaenyra's Rhaenyra Renaria,
Masseria?
um,
Massaria
her best
is
friend.
her best friend, yeah.
There may be more to that. I don't know. There was
They kind of
kinda-
hinted at some stuff there, yeah.
I mean, they could just be good friends, and that's fine. But I felt like they rested a little long on the two of them, um, when she was in front of the mirror and Massaria had her arms kind of. I felt like the camera rested on that a little bit
Yeah,
longer
yeah.
than it would have if it was just like a best friends kind of thing. Maybe not. Maybe I'm projecting.
But also,
But
Otto, the Hand of the King, Otto Hightower, like kind of did the whole. You should probably go see how the king is doing. Maybe you should
sending
wear one of your
her,
mom's
yeah,
old dresses,
yeah,
and kind of like thing, like he was putting her in a position of
go seduce the king.
those. I was gonna
Yeah.
say grief management that will lead to something down the line, but
Eh,
yeah, yeah,
I
you're
think
not wrong.
I think there's more going. I mean, he's the hand, right? So,
Right,
um,
right.
unless he's Ned Stark, he's bad. Um, and Ned's dead. So,
Ned was pure good, and that was a problem. in
right,
Game
he,
of
died
Thrones.
immediately. So, yeah, I think that the next several episodes are going to be more diving into who all these people around the king and around Damon are, so that when we get to the big conflict closer to the end, it means more, right? We're
Right.
more invested in who all the players are.
Right, right, and I that's one of the things that people complained about the last two seasons of the first series of Game of Thrones is that they didn't spend a ton of time with the character development and all that stuff, which is a fair criticism. That's not what's one of the criticisms that I'm like, yeah, I actually wanted the last season to be 8 episodes and not 6.
Yeah,
Like I get that. I understand why it was 6, and but we had spent 10 years with these characters by the time we got to the final season.
yeah,
I didn't necessarily need to spend a whole episode with them sitting around the fire the night before the Battle of Helm's Deep, or Battle
right.
of Helm's Deep,
Different
the Battle of Winterfell.
series.
It's the same battle. But I didn't need a whole episode of them sitting around talking about that. Like I needed them to spend 20 minutes around it and
Well, and at that point, the end of Game of Thrones, there were so many people,
yeah,
so many
yeah,
players
yeah.
that you got um, you know, 2 seconds with Brianna,
Right, or Podrick,
and
or
Podrick,
whatever, or
yeah,
Bronn.
because
Bronn's gone for like a whole season and a half, and
yeah.
then he shows up with a crossbow, and you're like,
Hey, welcome back.
but
Yeah, there were so many people that it was just got a little overwhelming.
but one of the reasons we love Game of Thrones so much is that we spend this time with diving super deep into each of these characters' motivations. And sometimes their motivations are aligned, and sometimes they're conflicted, and sometimes they're parallel with each other. And so that political intrigue, one of the reasons that I always liked it is the medieval politics of it all. We are part of a medieval reenactment group, and so we've done some more than
Tertiary.
tertiary, that's the word. Like kind of study into polit- the Middle Ages, and there was always scheming and high court and low court and who's doing what and
Oh, you're a
maneuvering.
5-year-old heir to the throne, and I'm gonna slit your throat. What?
Right, right. Like it happened more than once. But the Game of Thrones spends that time setting up all of the issue, and that we always are on that edge of conflict, but we never really get there until the end, until the absolute breaking point. Also, I won't say the end, but the absolute breaking point. And with what they did in this episode, they laid the groundwork of that. They introduced all of the major characters. I'm sure we'll get a couple more important characters. I won't say major, but important characters to the overall story as we go forward. But for the most part, they laid out the important pieces of here's why the conflict is going on. Here's the basis of why the conflict is happening, and now we can get into the minutia of the maneuvering and who's going to do what and who's doing what for what
Right.
reasons and all of that.
How many episodes is this season?
It says 10.
10? Okay. Yeah,
So
and
10, maybe 11 hours when you add
yeah,
in like all the
yeah.
extra stuff.
I was wondering how deep they're gonna go into the other houses this season.
S- I, because I don't like I'm a Stark. I very much align with the Stark and the Stark philosophy of I will follow you to the ends of the earth until you betray me, and even then I'm going to question it for a minute, and then I'm going to stab you in the heart. So I like to see more Starks, but the Starks and the Boltons and Dorne and all that stuff, in the grand scheme of things, for where they laid out this show, it's not about that. This is about the Targaryens.
Yeah, but they're all part of Westeros, and they're all going to be. I mean, if you think about Game of Thrones, it wasn't now again different premise, right?
Right,
That's about Westeros, not about a house
right,
specific.
right.
But I mean, you're still they talked about the Dornish
And Hightowers and
and
Boltons
the
and the Starks bent the knee
yeah.
to
So
Rhaenyra
I
and
just
stuff.
wonder how much they're gonna bring all that other
Yeah,
stuff into.
it's a. I took some notes. I probably didn't take nearly enough, but I'm just gonna. The Great Council. The 172 years. I just love that part. Um, they made a point of saying the Targaryens have 10 dragons.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We all saw what Dany could do with one to
Yeah,
King's Landing, and they Viserion Viserys has 10,
yeah.
and it's more of a mutual agreement, not necessarily control. They just kind of the dragons kind of go along with them, whatever, as good predators do. But you know what they can do with 10. You know what they can do with one. What are they
Right,
gonna do with 10?
right.
The notes of the main theme throughout the episode, I thought that was a nice little touch. All the swords on the throne, they made a good point of showing Viserys, uh, Viserion. I'm going to say it wrong every time.
Viserys.
Theris. There's no N in it. They made a point of showing that he's got the wound on his back and
Yeah,
he cut his finger. And there is a lore that if you cut yourself on the throne, you're destined to die in the throne.
yeah.
And so that kind of concept is all laid out in front of us, kind of thing.
Can anybody say tetanus?
Right, whatever you want to. A couple of things I want to talk about just as before we get in. Miguel Shaputnik is the actual showrunner. He's the one who did Heart Home, Battle of the Bastards, Battle of Winterfell. He's the one that did all the big important episodes. So it's shot really well. It's laid out really well.
I would say there was one scene where I was like, in the beginning when the wagon is coming through King's Landing, and the CG, the entire shot was CG. There was a lot of other scenes where it was practical, but it was like
yeah,
they just decided after the fact to add this scene in
and they just
of the wagon coming towards you,
yeah.
and it looked like a video game.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was a little wonky, but that didn't take me out of the scene. It was more like after the fact. I'm like, oh, that kind of didn't seem right as they went into the castle wall.
yeah,
The
I don't know why they
drawbridge
made
gate.
that decision. Just pull it out.
Yeah, I understand it, but I'm really happy that he's back and he's the showrunner and he has a plan and he's directing a bunch of this. And then um the music person, I can't remember his name.
The music person.
Ramon Djawani is doing all the music too, and he did all the music for a lot of the important stuff as beforehand. And I'm really glad that they are both back. That they love this universe enough that they want to do it.
Yeah.
George is actually directly involved with this
Yep.
instead of kind of walking away from it.
He's already written this book.
And he also wrote this book, so he has an idea that actually ends. That's another thing. And then like just some like little things that I really like. I like Paddy Considine. I like him as an actor overall.
Yeah.
But I like him in this role.
We're more used to seeing him as a comic actor,
comedic actor,
comedic actor.
like that, although he's really good in Peaky Blinders as the priest. So
Yeah,
again,
that's
really
true. Yeah, he's a
I
villain
really
there.
like everybody being in it. Graham McTavish.
Yep.
I really like him as
He's
an
a hot
actor,
Scot.
and I like him being kind of Rhaenyra's kind of head of security, whatever. I really like Emma Darcy. Um, as Rhaenyra, she kind of gives that quiet confidence of sureness of herself. I don't know how else to like.
Okay.
She's comfortable in her own skin.
Mhm.
But we have to talk about Whovians. We have to talk about Matt Smith. We've talked about since Jump that Matt Smith being in the show and being the quote unquote villain of the show is an adjustment period for us.
Right. It's really his hair that's adjustment period for me. But
There's a little bit of that. We kind of got used to the idea of Matt Smith being a villain because of Last Night in Soho. Because he's a villain for a movie that came out a year ago. Spoilers. But he's a villain in that movie, and he's a really, really, really good actor who has been able to prove that he's more than just the Doctor. With The Crown, Last Night in Soho, I really liked him in Morpheus. Like I really liked him. He is here for this role. And I say that because he put on like 30 freaking pounds and was walking around with no clothes on for like a good 5-minute issue of this episode. And that's my brain was like, the Doctor has no clothes on and he's ripped. and
he's
I'm not
the Doctor
anymore. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it. It's a moment of adjustment when somebody that I've loved as one particular one character shows up in a different role as a different version of anything that I've seen before, and he's menacing. I fear for anybody who's in a scene with Damon if they are not with him.
Yeah, Matt Smith as the Doctor is a very beloved. He is one of for the current Doctors. He is definitely up there with David Tennant as far as most beloved. So it may take a little bit, but I definitely already don't like him.
I,
I
I yeah,
which I'm conflicted
yeah.
because I love Matt Smith, but then I really don't like him every time he comes on the screen. So this will be fun.
I don't know if I don't like him. I don't trust him.
I don't like him. He's not
That's
a
where
very
I'm at
nice
right now.
person.
I don't think he's done anything in one episode. I don't think he's done anything where I've been like, that's irredeemable. I just don't think he's done anything yet.
No.
There's episodes of Game of Thrones where somebody did something and I'm like, that's irredeemable. Jaime Lannister. There's multiple times where I was like, Jaime did something and I'm like, that's irredeemable, and yet I'm still rooting for him.
Right.
But I get it. I get the whole. He's doing in one episode. He did such a great job of laying the groundwork of having a character that you absolutely hate because you need to have somebody you absolutely hate.
But you hated Tyrion in the first season of Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So
That's exactly what I was going to say. So we're on the same page. Anything else about this episode you want to talk about?
No, I
think we did pretty. I think we did pretty good for half an hour. There's tons of other people out there who are going to do breakdowns and long discussions. Casterly Talk with Ken Knapsack is going to have tons of stuff. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to probably talk about in future episodes is probably going to come from him because he's much more into he's read all the books and he's into the history of the Targaryens and Westeros and everything like that. And so I would point you to the direction of Casterly Talk. They do a great job. Watch us, watch them, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, we are here for the fun of the show, and so if you have any questions or comments, please let us know in the comments down below. We require that you be nice. I have the ban hammer. I will use it. If you're going to be a dick, we'll 86 you out of here.
Don't be a
we,
dick.
we will have a we'll have a conversation if you want to have a conversation. So please be nice to the comments, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.